And welcome or welcome back. This is Village Living and Innovation after all. Hello and welcome or welcome back to another episode of Rural Living and Innovation, soon to be Village Living and Innovation. I feel like rural is a bit backward. It's like our current situation, but it's not like, and village is more appropriate for, the situation. So, thank you for joining me for this episode. If this is your first time, I hope you enjoy this episode. If you are returning, you're OG, the real one, because we've been doing this for a year, I've been publishing videos on YouTube officially for a year now. I started creating the content for YouTube a bit prior to that, like maybe 3 or so months before that. But I started publishing in November last year, and it's officially been a year. So, yay to me on consistency. And I think I'm saying yay to me on consistency because it's actually very challenging to stay consistent on something that is your own, because usually you have nobody else outside of yourself to be accountable to. So if you just decide to procrastinate or postpone, nobody's going to say, hey, you said you were going to do that. You're not necessarily losing money in real time for not doing the things that you want to do. So you don't really see it. And so for me, it's really important to celebrate consistency, because there is a, what do they call it? It's a cost benefit. There's a there is a cost benefit to procrastination. So you get to relax, but you're not like the quantifying what you're actually losing by procrastinating is a bit hard, and so that's why it's easy to continue procrastinating. So I'm really happy for myself that I've been doing this for a year. This is episode 30. We should be at episode 52, but I guess I skipped some weeks in between the year. It's been a long year. There's been a lot of ups and downs. There's been a lot of progress also. Um, and I think now's a good time to just like reflect on like content creation in South Africa, and how people or youth specifically who are unemployed and possibly have like digital skills, or like can navigate the digital stratosphere, can navigate the digital world a lot easier than other people, have a lot more time to engage on socials or whatever form, because like digital engagement or content creation isn't just for socials. So I'm going to share a bit of my journey a little bit, so that there's a reference on context or like examples of what you can do for yourself if you want to get into the content creation game, because there is a need for it, and I don't think there are enough players in the game. Like even with like influencers, there are very few influencers that actually know how to get the deal done. Like I have a personal care brand. I make hair and skincare products. I have one episode where I share how I make some of my products. I'll link that somewhere in this video. But on my business page, I get a lot of requests from people wanting to partner up. Initially, I used to be very excited about such DMs and emails, but I've learned to be able to discern between like a good request and like a request that doesn't give me any value, where somebody's just like looking for free product, but they don't know how to articulate the value that I will gain as a business from engaging with them, and their only like asset is their following, but the conversion rates and their engagements, they don't really know how to speak on those for me to make a decision on that. So but in the same breath, I've been in a position where I've been creating content on my side, and I've used that content to get jobs, so and that has helped. So I'm speaking on both as a receiver of, as somebody who's looking for people to partner up with and on digital content, creating content, but also as somebody who has created content for partners. My journey with content creation, I started out just writing for myself. I don't know if we're done yet. So before the rooster interrupted us. So I have this theory that roosters crow at a specific time and they crow for very specific periods. Like right now, they've been crowing for a good 30 minutes. I cannot wait for 30 minutes for them to finish crowing so that I can continue recording this episode. I don't have that kind of time. But I think they crow for an hour at very specific times of the day. I'm not sure what they're communicating, but they seem to be communicating something. um anyway, before the rooster situation, I was talking about how I started my content creation journey. So I think it was in 2015 or something when I first read Miss Millie B's blog post. I'll try and attach a screenshot somewhere here of her blog that I then found, if it's still available. She had a blog on Blogspot, and I think she started blogging around 2009. And at that time, she had then been blogging for like a good 5 years, and I think she had been getting paid to do like feature to feature in certain magazines and write for them and stuff like that. But she had been doing it for a good 5 years by the time that I discovered her. And then I discovered, like in the same like year or a year later, I discovered YouTube. But at the time, I didn't have the resources to do YouTube. So let me talk about the writing. As I said, they'll go on until like quarter two, I think, or like 22. Um, the roosters, that is. But with me, I saw Miss Millie B's. I'd been looking up how to get money on the side, like a side hustle, without any money, and writing was one of them. But the articles that I'd been reading, or the people that I'd been reading from, were American, and I didn't think that would like land in the South African context. And when I found Miss Millie B, so 2015, I was doing my second year, and when I found Miss Millie B's blog, and she was talking about like magazines, she was talking about editors, she was talking about race. I think the first article or blog post that I read from Miss Millie B was titled, Why are my white friends talking to me about race? Or why are white people talking to me about race? Something like that, something to that effect. And she was talking about this lady in an elevator talking about God knows what. I can't remember, but it was very compelling, and I loved the way she told it. And I remember thinking, um, with all the maths that I'm doing in engineering, I'm going to forget how to write. And I really enjoyed creative writing in school, like all kinds of writing, and you could decide whether it was creative, whether it was like investigative or whatever. I just enjoyed writing in school, and I did really well in English. I did well, not really well. I did well in English. And so it was, for me at the time, it was a way for me to preserve my creative writing skills, but also at the same time find a space to vent about my experiences in Stellenbosch. Like the first time, my first week or 2 weeks in Stellenbosch, I cried. I got there on the 10th of Jan, I think, and like the reality of the whiteness and Afrikansness of the situation just shocked me. Like, and people can say like I should have known it's Stellenbosch, I should know my history. I didn't do history. Like history, like social science, and like in my school we weren't really as exposed to like the internet and like outside literature. So I didn't know that like that was still a thing in South Africa. So I wanted a space where I could vent about that, but also exercise my creative skills, because I understood it as like it will fizzle away if I don't use it. Because in engineering, you don't really describe things, at least while you're doing the degree. You don't describe things, like only in your like final or third year or final year do you write a report that is descriptive, but the whole time you're just like doing equations and stuff. So and then, so I was doing that from like 2015. I'll try and add like a screenshot of my blog. It's still up. It was called Stelly's Afro Chick. And I called it Stelly's Afro Chick because I actually wanted to call it the prayers and thoughts of an Afro chick in Stellenbosch, but my friend Timothy, who initially helped me set that like up, actually Timothy has been a really good friend throughout the years. I should like check up on them and Jojo. But Timothy helped me set that up initially, and he was like, "That's too long, babes. That's too long." And I was like, "Okay, call it Stelly's Afro Chick." And I called it Stelly's Afro Chick because being in Stellenbosch as a black person and as a black girl specifically in engineering was really challenging. Um, like I was one of less than 10, like towards like our final year when we chosen our streams in electrical and electronic engineering. Like there was less than 10 of us as black girls and less than 20 of us in a class of like 80 to 100, and less than 20 of us as girls, including like white, colored, and everything else. um so there wasn't that much, like, so it was just challenging being in that space. And so I needed a space to vent that out. And that's the only reason for me that I joined social media, to be frank. I joined Facebook because my friends were like, um I think that's the last curl. I joined Facebook because my friends were like, "Oh, everybody shares photos. Everybody shares photos from events on Facebook, and then they tag you. So if you're not on Facebook, how are you gonna get the photos?" I remember I actually created a Facebook account after Helene's birthday. Helene was in the same race as us. She lived in Stellenbosch, and she was generous and invited us to her birthday. It was beautiful. Um, but at the same time, I was like, oh, okay, what was I saying again? Before I did it, my Helena's party. Ah, so like, yeah, so I created a Facebook account because of that. But after I started the blog post, I then created an Instagram account, because for the whole time I'd seen Instagram as a vanity, as vanity media. It's just like you post photos of yourself, you post photos of your food, but like for what? Like, what's the ultimate point? But if you had been doing that, had been using it as a vanity matrix, and people were following you because they liked how you look, um, then when you have a product or something to launch, or people are looking for people to promote, you're one of the first people that they consult for that. And you've also got the experience of content management and content sharing, a handle of content sharing and content management ahead of everybody else. So there are benefits to being an early adopter, but being an early adopter means also you suffer like being looked at as like the judgments that come with like being an early adopter. Like I say, I saw it as like a vanity matrix for people. But eventually it was useful. So I joined Instagram because I wanted a place to share my blog post content beyond my immediate friends. I don't really want to like create a page for it like that. Eventually I did, but I thought Instagram would also help. Um and then yeah, so throughout the time, like I was finding with creative ways to let people know about my business. So Canva was still like very like early days of Canva, where it was just for graphics and it wasn't as expensive as it is now. You could use it to make logos and stuff like that at the time. So I would use Canva to make graphics for my blog posts and share them on Instagram. I wasn't doing as much sharing on Facebook because like I was worried about the judgment again. um, but also it's very scary sharing your thoughts to people you don't know when you don't know how they'll be received. It's a bit windy. When you don't know how your thoughts will be received, and like some of my blog posts were about race, and I had white friends, and I not friends, but like I think now some of them are acquaintances, but at the time I had people that I thought would become friends, like, you know, lifelong friends, and I didn't know if they'd be offended by my thoughts, but also at the same time my experience of their environment was just, that's what it was, and I wanted to share it, but also at the same time I didn't want to offend them, so I chose, I thought it would be easier to share on Instagram. And then I experienced content management, which is like, how often do you share? Like I think I was publishing a blog post a month or something like that. I tried a week, but it wasn't really working out with my academic studies, so I was doing more of a month. um so like that thing of pacing yourself, creating content, like regularity, creating a subscriber list, that whole thing I had experienced with it on my blog post, which was not necessarily generating money. I tried adding AdSense to it to make money, but it didn't really work out for me. Um, I'm running out of space again. So I had tried adding AdSense, which is like a way to get ads to display on your website from Google. It's a Google service to display ads on your website. I tried adding AdSense to my website, but I'd been using curse words and my blogs, and I wanted that freedom, and I was okay with not monetizing the site because I anyway wasn't getting as much traffic. It was just like a personal exercise. I wasn't really as invested in monetizing it like that at the time. But it was just for me to create a writing portfolio. And then in beginning of 2019, there was this lady that I'd been interacting with on Twitter. I think she was like an editor at Mail and Guardian at the time, and I was sharing also, I think, on Twitter some of my thoughts, and I she talked about property, and I really loved her. I was a big fan. I'm still a fan. We're not in contact anymore, but I'm still a big fan. And she contacted me and asked me if I do any writing, and I was like, yes, I do write. No, prior to that, somebody that I'd known from Stellenbosch who had owned a magazine. It was called Stellenbosch Magazine at the time. I'll see if I can find their websites. I'm not sure if they still have a website or social media, but I'll try and find them and link them here. But they were just like starting out with their website, and they wanted somebody to help them with writing, and they were paying me like 1,000 rand to contribute, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, let's do it. It's like I can spend a weekend writing this thing and I can get 1,000 rand. I'm a student and it makes a difference. So I did that, and then and I used my Steady Jaffa portfolio to like convince them that I do write and I can write and I write well. And they let me write for them for a couple of months, and I was trying to manage their website also, but it didn't really work out like how I thought it would, and yeah, that relationship ended. And then beginning of 2019, um this lady, the property lady that I was talking about, contacted me and asked me if I write. And I was like, yeah, I definitely write. And she was like, could you send me a portfolio? And I sent her the link to my stuff, and she could browse and see how I write. And I was like, obviously some of it is political, but I would tone that out, like I would remove that in writing. For, you know, there's different kinds of writing. Like I said, it's not emotive writing, it's just descriptive writing. And then she let me summarize. It was like a speech from, it was actually, I think it was a an event that was in the Eastern Cape, and I had to write about that, and I wrote about that, and I sent her a summary, and it was supposed to be like 1,200 words, and they were paying me 3 rand, 3 rand a word, and I think I got like 6,000 from that, or like 4.5. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but I think I got a lot more money from that, and it was just one article. I think they paid like between 4.5 and 6. I can't remember exactly. Um, but they paid me. The only thing that was challenging with writing for Mail and Guardian as a freelancer was that you don't get paid immediately when you submit. You get paid like a few months later. So that was a bit challenging. But if you're writing often enough, like that stops becoming a problem, because like 3 months in, like, and you're writing, then you can expect some level of consistency. So when I deregistered in 2019, I think it was June, July of 2019, my plan was that I would live in Durban, somewhere in Pinetown. We had a house in Pinetown. I would be writing I would be doing freelance writing, and then I'd already started my hair care line. It was just the hair care line at the time, and I'd be doing my hair care line and like supplying whoever and selling, and that was my plan. um, that was derailed. One, they sold the house in Pinetown that we had. Two, COVID hit beginning of 2020. All the writing that was happening, and for me to build up that momentum of like, okay, now that I'm paid 3 months, I don't have to worry about the whole it takes 2 months to get paid. Um, but it was fine, you know. So it wasn't fine. Like 2020, like I was in the 6 months, I was fine with the pay, but also at the beginning of 2020, it started becoming a problem because there were no longer any conferences, and I was enjoying attending conferences because um I would meet other people who would be interested in what I'm doing, and then they take my number and potentially ask me to write for them. I was getting people asking me to write for them, specifically at Mail and Guardian at the time. It wasn't a lot of people, but they were like, two clients that liked my writing. So, and then COVID hits, nothing was happening. There was nothing for me to write about. I'm not a journalist, and the type of writing was not journalist type of things. It was just feature content, sponsored content, and just writing about the org or whatever. I think at the time there was also like the Malin gathering 200 women, and I had like 5 people to interview in certain like fields, and so it wasn't like journalism, like breaking stories. It was just, general. But that eventually dried up, and I think so it would depend on the size of the thing that they want written, how much I get paid. But I was okay with that because for me, the writing was a side hustle that would help fund the business, and the business was the main hustle. But everything, 2020 came, and it was just challenging. Also, shipping, and because I was no longer in Nazareth, in Pinetown, my shipping options were limited. There was no Budo or courier guy here. I had to go all the way to Pietermaritzburg to ship my orders, but it was just a lot. But the knowledge that I had from sharing content for my blog posts, for my blog specifically, helped me manage my then business page and create content for that. Um, and and that's why I think like it was judgmental of me initially to see Instagram as a vanity metric, as much as it probably was. But the people who were able to engage with it as a vanity matrix, of those people, the people that were able to convert, who had products or who could able to form partnerships, they were able to use that skill of content creation and content sharing and engagement to then form partnerships with corporate entities, if that makes sense. Um, and so for me, the knowledge that I had from sharing content about my blog, uh, I transferred some of that to managing my business pages, Earthly Q pages. And with the Earthly Q page, I had to create a content funnel, so to speak, to understand, okay, people aren't coming to the website. People aren't coming to the website because I don't have a page, and I can't keep sharing my business content on my personal page, because the people that follow me on my personal page follow me because they probably know me personally, and not because they like my business, so they don't really want to know that content. And also, yeah, and for my own peace of mind, to be able to be as creative as I want on my personal page, I created a business page. And with creating the business page, I started sharing like content on Instagram and Facebook and all of that. With creating content on the business pages, I realized that people were not necessarily going to the websites just because I posted a photo. And so I had to like then refine my messaging in the content that I shared. How do I make it easier for people to go from my uh, business page to my website where they can purchase? Um, with that, also uh, realizing that I can't keep sharing uh, content that promotes a product only. People only buy from you once they trust you, and you have to create trust before you ask them to purchase or ask them to do something. You have to give before they can give to you. And so I tried a lot of things with like social media management. There was a time when I was doing giveaways. There was a time when I had a partnership with Recoiling Thyself. Ooh, no, not I had a partnership with Cleo also. I know I've gone forget remember her name. Kile. Kile Bokile. I think her name is Kile. But she's also on YouTube, and she was creating natural hair content. Um I'd wanted to create natural hair content for a long time, but I was also, as you can see, I was also very keenly aware that I'm not consistent enough in creating the personal care content. I would not be consistent enough because I just don't do it. I just don't do it as that often, and my space and my phone at the time didn't allow for me to do that with content. I didn't think it would give me the amount of depth and breadth that I wanted to create, of the content that I wanted to create. Like you can see with this channel, I talk about a lot of things. And I thought if I started off as a natural hair channel, it wouldn't be able to give me like the freedom of movement that I have with this channel, for example, and the freedom that I had with my blog post, for example. So with the natural hair website, it has its own blog posts which are regular, because also with a website, if you have a website, it has to have it can't be static. In a way, it has to be dynamic. You have to, like, you anyway have to make updates to its structure, but it also has to have updates and content for it to rank better. I don't know, something like that. But that's a learning also that I had, and making it easy, how to make it easy for people to transfer from socials to the website or whatever assets that you're actually selling. Makes sense, because like right now, YouTube is an asset for me. I do drive content from my other social media channels to YouTube, but it doesn't have to be necessarily a website. It just have to be an asset that you're driving the rest of the traffic to. So you have to have a like a user generation stream, which is what social media can be, and then you have to have a user capturing like thing, which can be a blog post or whatever, before you actually focus on the actual sale. And that is transferable to sales. It's also transferable to general content. If you are a makeup artist, for example, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a page for your makeup artistry service, and you can have people book the services and make appointments with you via the website instead of messaging you on WhatsApp, like, so streamlining the thing. And yeah, like content create, like, for me, those were some of the things that I learned with managing my business's content, or user engagement sort of content. And then because the writing gigs had dried up, I was just like, okay, I can't depend on the business to support me while the business is also an infant. I've mentioned this in a previous video, and things I wish that I knew when I started my business. But um I realized my business couldn't support me, and I needed to have something that supports me and potentially my business. And then once the business is established, it can then start paying me. But like at that time, I realized even now the business can't pay me. Like I'm volunteering my services to Earthly Q. Um, so when I then decided I was going to look for a job, as you know, I decided to deregister at some point. So I didn't have a degree, and I didn't feel like I could officially enter like the engineering industry or workplace because I didn't have the paper. As much as I've walked like 99, 95, or 90% of the journey, I've done my final year project. I still haven't completed the thing, and that makes a difference to employers and staff. Like when you apply for things and it says highest qualification, there's nothing that says like, oh, 3.5 or 3. Like it's either you have a degree or you don't. And I was like, I accepted the fact that I don't have a degree, but I have skills, I have resources that I can use, that I've been able to use from the engineering learnings that I had. So I used my experience from running the business as well as writing for Mail and Guardian to then look for a formal job, like a full-time job. And when I started out at my full-time job, I've changed roles so many times. When I first started out, I was supposed to be a researcher. And I think that is the challenge with entering the industry without a formal like qualification beyond matric, is that even though you have like the skills or the resources, because you don't have the paper, people don't really know where to place you. So I started, and that's my assessment of the situation. So I started out in research. I was in research for a year, but the research lead left, and because I'm just new in like formal employment, I couldn't lead myself like in the space that we were in. And then so after that, I joined a specific project, um, doing research there, but also at the same time, um, doing comms for the organization. So what comms was managing the website content, managing the social media content, and then making it make sense, and then having like KPIs for all of that. And because um I had experience of doing that in my own in my own like business, but at the time there wasn't a big emphasis on it at my like at the place where I worked. I was able to advocate for it in a way. I was able to advocate for comms in a way. I was able to lead myself in comms, at least for a little while. I was able to lead my comms myself doing comms. We launched a newsletter. We did like a variety of things that were experimental for the organization, but it was useful considering where the organization was at. We're at a different place now, but I think it was useful for where we were at the time. And then now I've moved to something more up. I feel like I've moved to something more appropriate for what I studied, and I am in the data team doing a bit of data science, data handling. It's a lot of spreadsheets and a bit of Python code. I'm getting, and also like because I do program or code, it doesn't necessarily translate when you take it to data science. So I've been doing other learnings in data science, and that's been really exciting. But doing the content thing can help you either figure out what you actually can do, or it can help you enter the industry that you actually want to be in. Because you'll find a lot of really great organizations that are doing really great work but don't have a social media presence, and you can provide that value. You can offer that service for free for a specific period of time, and if they see the value of that service over that specific period of time, then they can pay you more, or they can pay you for offering that service, and you can write some kind of proposal and offer to do it for free, or you can, like, stuff like that. I think I don't think people are not doing it. I think people don't share as much how they enter, like, the workplace. It's not, and this is my personal belief, and it's not, like, it's just based on observation. When you apply for something that's already there, like, the incentive is, you haven't really taken the initiative to find opportunity, I feel like. So sometimes it's easier when you find an organization and spot a need that they might have, and then fulfill it. And the content thing is like the easiest one, because there's so many companies in South Africa that, like, and there's so many that don't even have a website, especially if the business has been generating a lot of sales from a physical store, and a lot of them don't have websites. There are places where you have to call, like, there are accommodation places that are listed in accommodation, like in travel agencies only, and they don't have a website. They have accommodation, but they don't have a website. They don't have any way for clients to reach out to them directly, but they also don't have a way to, like, capture new people, like, and for new people to find them in a way. I can think of, like, 5 here in Richmond that don't have, like, websites or a social media presence. I've tried to do it here, but, like, people don't really see the need for it. But even though those attempts have not succeeded, it has given me lessons for other things. So, for example, I've tried to set up a website for the Richmond Tourism Organization, and I set up the website. I was paying it for myself, and I just wanted to their feedback so that I could list their website in my portfolio to send to other people who also want websites. But they just didn't get back to me with the codes, and eventually I canceled it. Another guy here that has a hardware store, I tried to set up a website for him. I think he was just, like, too busy. I was paying for that also, and I just, like, then I shut it down. And then another one is, so right now I'm setting up, like, a village website for my specific village, where it's like a news platform, but it's also like a platform where we can make businesses and initiatives in my village more visible. I'll try and share a screenshot here where we can share initiatives and businesses in the village, and we can create visibility. There they go again. And we can create visibility, but also, hopefully, I'm hoping in the future we can also have a community online store where everybody who is in the community and makes a product or creates a product can list their products. We won't list, like, products that are, like, commercially, like, manufactured elsewhere, like maize meal that is produced elsewhere. But if we are producing our own maize, or there's an initiative here that is making maize, we can then sell that maize at a much lower cost, because our running costs, our operational costs, are much lower here in the village. And we can offer, like, our services at a much lower cost. For me, my products are organic and natural. They're made from naturally derived ingredients. And some people wonder why, if it's natural and organic, why is it so affordable? Because the long-term plan is for me to produce some of my own stuff. I'll share a tutorial video where I show how you can how I make my own aloe vera juice now. I buy most of my ingredients from E30 Naturals. Love them very much. If you're interested in starting your own skincare brand, or experimenting with skincare products, or just making them for yourself at home, E30 Naturals is like a fantastic supplier, and they've also got sample kits and stuff. But you can also try Essentially Naturals. I've been buying from Essentially Naturals for since I've been buying a product, because Seven Naturals range was a bit limited initially. But now I buy more from Isibuna than Essentially Naturals. But Essentially Naturals is also a really good one. Cutting Oh my gosh, I can't remember. Oh, so I remembered. It's so embarrassing. Because we are in the rural context, we can produce for the cost of production is much lower, and we can produce more authentic or more like natural and organic products. Um, and so I've been able to use the skills of trying to bring people together with Village Hardware, with like the Richmond Tourism Organization. I'm now trying to use that skill to benefit my people directly, because I was paying for those websites for a while, hoping that they would then make that decision to pay me. But like it was just taking so long for the decision to be made. And I was just like, it's cool, let's buy. Or I've also tried to make for like somebody else, Munji Brands. It's like a boutique enrichment that I really love. And I was like, you should be online, bruv. And I think like they're just going through their own. I think people are just going through their own things. It's not that they don't see the value in what I'm offering. It's just that their own processes are not aligned with what I'm offering. And that's okay. Like I like when I make the offer and I do the thing, I do that knowing very well that it might not turn out. So websites, web design, or content creation is also a form of content creation, even though it's not necessarily thought of that way. But you can create a website for somebody that is static, and they can just like, you can create a thing for them to log in and publish blog posts, and they don't have to see the back end. They can see the back end if they want, but they don't really have to. But you can also learn how to do that for yourself if you already have an audience and you just want to transfer that audience to like an asset. um, you can create a website for yourself where you create a mailing list for people to join, and you let them know like what you're sharing. I don't know. Also, a very useful tool that I think is useful for content creators is content scheduling tools. So I've mentioned Canva that I was using. Canva is for graphic design. So if you need graphics, whether it's logos, whether doesn't matter, like if it's just image content or video content, now they have video content, you can get it on Canva. And if you have the pro membership, I pay 100, I think it's 130 rand a month to be able to use all of the assets that they have on their website. You can do that. You can create the graphics or visuals of your whatever and use that. There's also Pixabay. Pixabay has videos and all types. If you can't create visuals but you need visual, but if visuals are not your selling point, you just need them as a support. And then for web design, it's WordPress. Like if you get a domain name with Freehost, and then you get the WordPress builder in the Freehost client service, and then in WordPress you use the Elementor builder, which is a visual builder for websites. You don't need to know to understand the back end or the code to build a website, you can just use it visually. You can level yourself up or add some elements with code, but it's not really necessary. And there are plugins in WordPress that you can use to customize your website and customize the experience. The challenge with having a lot of plugins, which I've experienced on my websites and I've tried to deal with it in different ways, is if you have a lot of plugins, the load time for your pages and the ranking overall is poor. So it's better to limit your uh, plugins. That's why if you have I don't have Elementor Pro or the paid version of Elementor. If you have the paid version, then you can get you don't need plugins to get certain features because those features are already built into Elementor, if that makes sense. But if you don't want to get pay for, you'll have to it's like piecing the website together. Yeah, and then for some people, there are people that have static websites which don't have web content that's generated regularly. So you can suggest types of content to them. You can create that content for them for free initially, and see if they want to pay for the service. And if they don't want to pay for the service, you can use the writing that you've done for them or whatever content you've created for them in your portfolio when you are asking other people or trying to work with other people, if that makes sense. Oh, but I was saying about content scheduling tools. So I probably have 6, 7 accounts in my name because uh, I have 3 personal accounts. I have 3 business pages for Earthly Q, and then I have a Facebook page for Steady's Afro Chick still. So yeah, and then I have Twitter somewhere in there. So I have 8 of those, and for me to manage all of those one by one, if I want to post on FBQ Instagram, I have to go on Instagram, switch from my personal account to my business account, and then post. It's a lot of admin. So using a service, a scheduling service, and a content or social media management tool like Buffer is really helpful. So Buffer gives you Buffer schedule. I don't know if it's called Buffer scheduler, but it's just called Buffer. Buffer gives you you can connect 3 social media channels for free, and if you want more than that, you have to pay $5 per channel. So if you want 4 channels, you have to pay $20 for those 4 channels. And you can Buffer allows you to create one post and then share it on the other platforms. And for example, with X or Twitter, it will, when you share on the platform, if the character is over the character limit, it will allow you to edit the caption just for Twitter, and then on the others where it doesn't have character limits, it will be just fine. There are some limitations to Buffer, but it's really good tool. You don't get the analytics or insights from Buffer if you don't have the paid version, but if you get the paid version, you can get really great insights like impressions, reach, engagement, and all of that, and that can tell you how good or bad you're doing. And even if you aren't doing good or bad, it just helps you create a baseline for how you're doing and then create a target or goal for how you want to do. Because if you are gaining your insights individually from Instagram, from X or Twitter, from TikTok, or from Facebook, it's difficult to consolidate those and gain valuable insights about what's actually happening across your social media. So getting the paid version of Buffer or any social media content management tool is really helpful because it helps you understand your analytics. For example, based on my work at my job, I understand, okay, your following won't grow if your impressions if your reach is low, but your reach will not increase if your impressions are low. And for your reach to grow, your impressions need to be double your reach, and for your following to grow, for your reach to grow, your impressions need to be higher than your reach, and for your following to grow, your impressions need to be double your reach, and then you'll start seeing a following. The higher the value or the number of impressions that you get, and the higher the reach, the more new followers that you get. It's almost like that's why celebrities don't like they do contribute to their follower growth by creating content consistently, but because they already have a large following and their reach and impressions are high, and they maintain that reach and impressions by posting consistently, they consistently get new followers. So like um if you look at Beyonce's following every year, it will have increased because one, she's seeing new people every time when she tours, or she's seeing fans or whoever. But every time she goes on a tour, she has content, and that new content reaches new people, and those new people, there's more people from that pool of people that follow her. It's almost like a catch 22. The more you post, the more people see your post, the more people follow you. But if you don't post anything, you don't talk to anyone, you just like post, and gee, you like, it's not gonna go anywhere. So that is the all round of it. I think there are more content creators in South Africa than I'm aware of, obviously. Obviously. But I think the range of content that we are getting is a bit limited. Like, for me, all of the stuff that I've learned about how to make skin and hair care products has been from Americans and Australians mostly, and information about like setting up a business, and like that starting from scratch, and that starting from scratch vibes I've seen mostly from Americans. I've seen like Sinovuyo Mondliwa. Sinovuyo Mondliwa is a really great example. Admire Sinovuyo. And like, I think what kills me about Sinovuyo's journey is like, I think she started with a silk she started with natural hair content creation. Like, I think she's one of those examples of people who might have started out with content creation when it was just like for food and vibes, and then she leveled up and she found a niche and she did it with natural hair. And then when she found natural hair and she found her audience and she was growing, she was able to then diversify her content and add travel, add business, add all types of things. But as her audience was growing, she was also able to find a product. And when she found a product, she was able to sell that to her, an audience that she'd already built. And when she added more products to her offering, it translated because she had already captured that audience. I feel like it kills me because like we're in the same industry, and I've been making products around about the same time. I was looking at a video the other day. She said she started in like 2019, 2020. I was thinking I started around the same time, but like, look where I am. Like, I don't even get like 50 orders a month. And I'm working very hard to get it to a better point with marketing, with systems. That's why I have the space where I can like actually systematize. And part of me being able to be consistent, even with content on YouTube, is because I have the space. And hopefully, now that I have the space, I'll be able to create the products more consistently, fulfill orders consistently. Like, consistency has been a big issue, guys. We'll talk about it in another episode, but consistency, it's very challenging. Very, very challenging. But I hope this episode has been helpful. This is the end, and yeah, I think like there's obviously always more to say, and maybe I'll find another time to say more. But I thought this was appropriate considering that I've been doing this for a year. Um, yeah, what else? Oh, the last thing that I wanted to say about YouTube specifically that I was unprepared for is how much data this actually takes. So I don't have fiber. I don't have an unlimited sort of internet supply. And wow, wow, wow. When I first started out, I thought I would be publishing 2 videos a month. But after the first 2 weeks, my data bundle, which usually lasts me a month watching Showmax and stuff, was not lasting. And so it takes a lot of data. And that's why I think, as much as like TikTok, Instagram, and everything else, yes, it consumes a lot of data, but YouTube, try and upload a 45-minute video to YouTube and see how well you will do. You'll be sitting there all day, my friend. And it just takes more. It obviously it is fun, but you have to take it more seriously than, oh, I share when I want to. It's just vibes. It has to be more serious than that. You have to take it like as seriously as you will take showing up to your job every day, because it's not easy. It's not like for fun. It can be for fun, but like if you want to make money from it, you need systems for it. And yeah, there's lots to be figured out. What applies to my personal pages doesn't apply to my business pages, and doesn't apply to any other pages that I would set up that are not necessarily natural hair and beauty. And so there will always be new things that you're learning that somebody hasn't told you about. But I hope these are helpful if you're interested in content creation or content management, or like social media management, or that type of a thing, or you are trying to get yourself out of unemployment and to a different place, even if it's just freelancing. Yeah, if you're not subscribed, if you got here and you're not subscribed, please just subscribe, because you like me already. Like, you like me already. And go and watch the other videos. Just binge the rest of these videos, because you already like me. We've already established this. And thank you for getting here. But like, just subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe, because we family. We friend. We in the club. We family. Bye.